Start the day as you mean to go on. So, who has a question or a challenge for the group? Make it be known. Dawn does. She's going through design phase. Leanne does, and Lorna does. So that's 3 people. Dawn, do you want to kick us off?
Yes, please. That'd be fab. Thank you. So I'm doing a people manager program for a nuclear organization, and it's not anything rocket science. Literally, they what they
Is that deliberate?
it wasn't. It's all the basics. It's management essentials, essentially. So it's all stuff I'm really familiar with. But there's just one part. It's actually 2 questions, but I'll save one maybe till next week, or put it in the WhatsApp. The main one that's tricking me out is I need to come up with, or I'd like to come up with an activity around translating strategic objectives into operational plans. But I'm just thinking, how can I do something about translating the big picture to the team plan, to the individual plan, and make it come alive and make it interesting?
You could do something out of context first, like really simple, like, I want to run a marathon next year or something. There's a strategic objective. And then what does that mean in terms of kind of step by step? That was the first thing that sprang to mind, because there's lots of different components that you might, you know, diet, exercise, accountability, tracking, that kind of thing. So you could take a really sort of just something simple and out of work and relatable, just to get the concept across. And then you could have something like, okay, we've got lots of different departments in the organization, you know, finance, HR, manufacturing, whatever. Here's an example of a strategic objective. What would that mean for each department? Or get them to swap and look at different departments that are not necessarily familiar with. So it's kind of bringing a new perspective to something they perhaps wouldn't normally be engaged in. So what do the finance team need to do to, or how would they contribute to this? How would HR contribute to this? How would, like, the different components of different departments or functions or something?
Yeah, if you could take what Eleanor's saying, and for now, I'm thinking like 3 or 4 P's, but we would need to work on them, which would be like, what people do they need involved? What resources do they need? So that's not a P, but I'll still keep going with it. What processes or procedures or might they need for it? I just can't think of any more P's in my head.
Or you could just turn it on its head and kind of triz it, as it were.
Yes.
Do something about what should we do if we don't want to achieve this objective, or all the things that we should do to completely achieve the opposite or detract from it or something. In liberating structures, it's a triz. I think a triz is a bit more complicated than just that sort of idea.
I bought the Liberating Structures book, and I've written
cool.
triz into an earlier
great
module.
Yeah.
So
but sometimes doing it the opposite is quite useful, isn't it? So if this is the objective, what's everything that the people shouldn't do, that the you know, finances shouldn't do, or whatever?
Yeah.
Could you look to use like the GRIP model?
The
GRIP model.
Was that goals, roles?
Yeah, interpersonal relationships and processes, and kind of do an activity of breaking that down from what that overall strategy is.
It goes the other way around. So it's like, I call it the gripping model, even though it's not right. So yeah, but you're absolutely right. So it's what's the goal, what are the roles, what's the processes, and then what the individual relationships. So it's a team effectiveness model. But yeah, that is a really good way of breaking it down, Lorna.
And that sort of relates to what Ali was saying as well, doesn't it? Because those things would be included in there. So,
and not to state the obvious, but I am going to state the obvious. Often when we do these things, you know, maybe just explore the word strategy, and then explore the word what's the
operations.
Yeah. So just get people clear about that, because sometimes when they're actually clear about what they're working with, you know, it gives them stuff to hang their thoughts on. So sometimes we just like go into it all, whereas I would spend a couple of minutes looking at strategy and operations and thinking of examples, or, you know, in drawing from what already do you see as a strategy, what already do you see as operational. So then at least they can, they've got some context, and they've got words to articulate yeah, what they're trying to say or think about.
I think what,
Yeah.
that's just made me think
Brilliant.
about sort of, I mean, obviously we're going back half a century now, but the moon landings, isn't it? So the strategy was to put a man on the moon. But in order to achieve that, a heck of a lot of things had to happen. So each,
And I do mention
would
that
have
as
its-
well
yeah.
earlier on, so I can refer back to that. We link it to purpose. So,
Yeah.
you know, what is your purpose in organisation? So, okay, brilliant.
And it's that cathedral story as well, isn't it? The old, it's one of these that's cited as the Chinese proverb, but it might not be. Where you just got 3 stonemasons, and you go along. Hey, what are you doing? I'm chiseling this rock. And goes to the next one. What are you doing? Oh, I'm chiseling a rock to build a wall. What are you doing? So the third one, I'm building a cathedral. So, but they're all doing exactly the same thing. They've just got that different perspective.
Yeah.
Because that's where the NASA janitor, who
Yeah.
allegedly JFK went to see, and he said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm putting a man on the moon."
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why the moon landing, that action-oriented project goal, we're going to put a man on the moon before the end of the decade. Oh no, put a man on the moon, return him safely to Earth before the end of the decade, has all the components of the SMART goal in it.
Yeah.
That you can tell them it's specific, it's measurable, it's, you know, action oriented. And the one thing that I was going to say, because I've done 2 seminars for 2 different nuclear organizations. And one thing I found is because they're very analytical people have gone in there and given them very, very dry training.
Yeah.
And I remember getting the evaluations from, and I had the trainers from HR in the group, and their evaluations were very different from the people's. They're like, oh gosh, this is unlike anything we've ever had before. This is so much more engaging and fun. So if you said you might have HR people, just realize, don't go in there just thinking that because they're analytical, they're just going to hold a bunch of facts. They are going to want that. And anything you do, they're going to want you to back it up. And anything that you do, you're going to have to give them reasons to why you're doing it, but you still make it engaging, because that's one of the things I found that the feedback that I got when I did it for them.
Yeah, that's
Park
what
your
you're
car
looking for,
backwards
isn't it?
when you get there.
And
That's the
interestingly,
rules.
Shireen, they said that they're really good at attending compliance training because they can see why they have to do that. It's
Right.
the other training they're not so good at attending, which is to your point exactly. So we need to make it engaging so that word spreads, and then they go, oh no, you need to go on this program because.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah, good
And if you
shout.
give them a really good reason as to how this is going to benefit them personally, they'll be even more on board.
I think that, and I will have a look in the resources as well, Dawn, because there might be some activities where different teams have different tasks, but they can all work together to achieve the same thing. The strategy stuff. I don't know if you saw some of the stuff that Jamie put in the WhatsApp group, which is really generous of him. So I don't know if any of that would translate. Lorna?
So mine's not particularly around kind of designing training, but I just wanted to kind of get your input on. I'm taking on a project to redesign, revamp, re-energize our one-to-one process for our warehouse operative team. So I was just wondering if any of you guys had inspiration, input of to how I could make this one-to-one process, sort of questions that we should be asking within it to make it a more uplifting experience for them. Because currently they've got a really long-winded form that's got kind of probably some wording in there that's really complicated as well. So we're looking to really make it a lot more inclusive, considering all the kind of neurodiversities that we might have within the warehouse operations, and looking to, currently it's on paper, so we're looking to digitize it as well to make it a lot more efficient moving forward. So any important ideas is much appreciated.
I'm wondering if my immediate thoughts are that it's probably, and I'm making huge assumptions here, because warehouse operatives, I'm thinking, is it very quantitative how their work is measured?
Yeah.
So if it is, I wondered if you could bring something in more qualitative.
Yeah.
You know, what do you enjoy most about your job? What frustrates you most? What do you want from a manager? To give them a little bit more not more ownership, but they probably, you know, are you filling orders? Are you filling enough orders? Are you filling them quickly enough? Are you filling them accurately enough? Is very dry, isn't it? So I wondered if maybe it was an opportunity to broaden that out a bit and think about them as individuals and what they want to get out of work.
Yeah, Definitely.
There could be something about,
when you go, Leanne.
and there could be something about so Paul Matthews, I think, has something about capability, but I got the question, so I'll just find them and I can pop them in the chat or send them to
Oh, that'd be
Sheridan.
brilliant. Thank you.
It's written in the third person for a manager who's thinking about somebody's job. So they'll say, so it's think about, what do you want the person to do more of? What do they need to do less of? Should they even be doing this at all? Who else could be doing the work? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's those kind of questions. And I'm
Yeah.
just thinking that maybe you could take those and then they might be inspirational to say, right, so what do I enjoy doing? Just like Dawn was saying, what do I enjoy doing? What frustrates me? What I think I should be doing, what I think I shouldn't be doing, what I think I need to do more of, what I need to do less of. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I had one train of thought that is now, oh no, it's came back to me, which was we used to talk about not just the what you did, but the how you did it. So were you
Yeah.
coming up with ideas, were you a good team player, all of those things. But the other part, building on what Leanne was saying, I've replaced stop, start, continues in my workshops with bin, bank and build, which are effectively the same thing, but feel a bit more accessible for people. So again, if we think about what might they want to bin out their job, they might not be able to get rid of it, but it might be something they want to consider. What
Yeah.
do they want to build on? So what are they interested in? Where's their passion? That's maybe move more in development as part of that conversation. And the bank is the, what do you want to keep doing? What's the thing you're going to hold on closest to as well?
There was some work with there's a survey from Gallup which says that employees want clarity. They want to show that they can develop, so some sort of learning development, and they want to know that you care. And I think those are three things that are really useful to bring in their check-in. It's interesting you say, Ali. I'm working with a company at the moment that has also got rid of their appraisal system and their performance ratings because they found out it was just really toxic. And so they are doing check-ins, and they call them check-ins once a month or whatever seems appropriate, and that's manufacturing on the line as well as the office-based ones, and they've split it into three sections. The first one is what are your objectives and how you're tracking with those, and is there anything that around there which is not giving you clarity? And I think that says, what you're doing well, what you're not doing so well, what can I support you with? Then there's an element of feedback. So what feedback do you have for me? And I have some feedback for you in the nicest possible way. and then the final part is the kind of well-being part, which is, what's happening for you. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in that order, or indeed a same amount of time for each of those. And so some of them are just, how's it going? And what's going on in your world at the moment that may or may not be impacting you, and to really get to grips with what might be going on there. But I think if you have a balance of those three things, it can help.
Put a document in the chat, and I've signposted one of our resources, which is actually it's not something that I've created, it's something that's freely available on the internet, but I've noticed it's not loading properly, so I will go back and check that that's right. And obviously I'll put the links in.
Perfect, thank you.
Afterwards as well.
What I put up there may not be directly related to what you're looking for, but you never know. It might help someone here, or might help just even if you took one question, do you know what I mean? And
definitely. Thank you.
It feels like there ought to be a 4-box model for this, doesn't it? It's almost like what's going well, what's not going so well for whatever reason, and how, and then in fact, it's reminding me of SWOT actually. So we all know SWOT, don't we? So a SWOT is very similar. So strengths, so what's going well, weaknesses, what's not going so well for whatever reason, opportunities, how could we make better use of your talents, and there's the C is oh God, what's the C stand for? Challenges. What challenges do you see coming up that we can help prepare you for? So the S and the W look at you in your role now, and then the O and the C look at so they look outward really. So what's coming up? What's in the future? So that's quite nice as well.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. So you're actually replacing the threats, the
Yeah,
challenges.
yeah, it's challenges.
Great.
Because again, it stops people being defensive. I think it's just to say I can see this is going to be a bit of a challenge, rather than, you know, I'm not going to be able to do this.
No, I was just saying, I've been doing a lot of reflection on what Leanne's saying. So in every workshop that I run, if I have to do something that looks at what they need to develop, I also ask them to go and look at what's their 2 key strengths in that area as well, because we know it's easier for them to leverage. And then last night, and I've listened to it twice now, I was listening to Stephen Bartlett's book, and it's an interview with Jimmy Carr. And Jimmy Carr says, I'm paraphrasing, but if you're an A student in English and you're a D student in physics, why do we push you so hard to make you a C student in physics, when actually what the world doesn't need, and excuse the language, and obviously for the recording, is more shit physicists or physics people, and it's exactly true, because there are, for some roles you do have to develop outside your natural place, but there's also a lot of companies that I find that are still stuck in the let's talk about what you're not doing rather than what you are doing as well.
Yeah, so true.
There's another thing as well on that rubbish physicists, is that actually you end up losing your strengths as well. If you always concentrate on your weaknesses and trying to improve that, you take your eye off the bit where you are strong and you become average.
Everything,
everything.
Average and miserable, yeah.
Yeah, so true, Annette. So I think, Lauren, I think these is just have maybe like 3, 4, 5 very simple questions and make sure it looks at the whole person.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think
no, that's great.
That's really important, and the way that we phrase them is important, isn't it? So we just want to understand what's going on here and how we can help you.
Yeah, no, that's great. I really appreciate that, guys. Thank you.
Good stuff. Leanne, shall we come to you? Because I want to make sure I've got time to cover Annette as well before we finish.
I've said yes to something, and you know when you say yes to something and then you regret it? And then I thought,
How you grow, Leanne, you're always telling us.
well, but you know, I thought I'd just let the stuff go long ago. Anyway, here we go. I need to spend one day with about 10 people. In the morning, we have to deal with, in the morning, spend it managing change, and in the afternoon, equality and diversity. Yes, exactly. So
Eleanor's face.
Transition.
I even want to see the outcomes, objectives, whatever you want to call them. Explain to people why change is necessary and get them to buy into changes. Okay, we noted. Understand and analyze change from a strategic perspective. Understand why people react the way they do to change. What is corporate social responsibility and why do we need to be aware of this when managing changes and strategic planning? Managing effectively using a range of tools, understand how to make change stick and be a change champion.
In half a day?
All of that.
And that's not even starting with equality and diversity. So I've just got to like rein my overwhelm and anxiety in and just make a start. So I have gone on to the VIP section, and I know that you've got there, you know, handling resistance to change, manage impact of change, lead transition in a VUCA environment. So as a VIP, I can access all of that, Sheridan.
Well, they're the power hours, aren't they? So they are discounted for you.
Yeah,
But
so
we
they're
do.
just-
The thing that struck me was that given that you've got half a day, which is absolutely ludicrous, is to do a nice meaty activity and then just debrief it with whatever comes out of it.
Yeah, and these
My
guys,
view.
these guys love an activity. So I think they'll get a lot out of it. But I'm thinking I have no idea where to start because I want to do good by these guys. Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah,
this
I
is
was just thinking if you did a nice big meaty activity and then maybe put them in pairs or threes and say, so what can we learn from that about strategic approach to change? What can we learn from that about, and so those other things, and get them to pull it out, because in half a day, you've got no chance.
No.
Maybe use a case study, like get ChatGPT to write you a good meaty case study, and you can then maybe have them like in small groups, either looking at a different aspect of it, or give them all the same task and then they come together and do a big debrief, and as Sheridan says, you then kind of pull those various bits out of it. Or you could use like Kotter's 8 steps or something like that and base it on that, and then just kind of go through each of those, and then that gives you a ready-made structure that will probably cover all of those things on the list. And then you could do that in the context of a case study perhaps as well, and then walk it through Kotter's 8 steps, and then just spend, like, you only have 20 minutes or so on each one, wouldn't you? In
so
your half day.
I thought of Kotter's 8 steps. It could be like the
It just
framework,
gives you the structure, doesn't
having
it?
everything on, you
About
know.
it, yeah.
Have you ever read Our Iceberg is Melting?
No.
It's based on well, it's written by John Kotter on based on the 8 steps, and it takes about 3/4 of an hour to read, but it just talks about a colony of penguins who have to change, and the reason I just mention it is because it's really accessible way of looking at the 8 steps of change. It takes about half an hour, 3/4 of an hour to read, and it just really helps understand change. I mean, I often feel a bit daft talking about penguins when I'm talking about change to groups, but hey,
but they remember something that's different, you know.
Yeah.
There's
Stories.
also a video on
Stories.
YouTube about it. Because I just downloaded it. There's a video on YouTube about it, a wee animated one. I just downloaded it last night. And then triggered me into one that I also downloaded last night. This is how I found penguins. And for those of us that have been in change and training for a long time might remember Who Moved My Cheese?
Yeah.
And I was like, don't get me wrong, the video is the most grainy video you will ever find because it's the original. But I was like, again, the message is still there. Because I do a tiny bit of change for a client and there's not enough time to do it well. And so I'm starting to think of other ways around it as well, because they talk about, and I was just looking up, my client talks about Lewin's 3-stage change process.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can dump that.
Something like freeze, unfreeze, and something.
Yeah.
Refreeze.
Refreeze.
I don't like the titles, but I quite like the things underneath them.
Yeah. There's another one, bridges, transitions. That's quite nice.
I love Bridges transition model.
Letting go, sort of no man's zone,
and then new beginnings. Yeah.
And that's quite nice because people actually have to let go before they can start the new beginning.
So if I was to look that up, do I just look up Bridges, transitions, and change?
That is what's in my power hour on managing transition in Booker environments. It's based on Bridges.
Okay.
So that's my favorite change model because it doesn't talk about the change process. It talks about the people going through change rather than, these are the 8 steps that you must do. But people are messy and people have feelings, and we all go through to different times and in different ways. So I think that's really important. So a lot of times managers don't appreciate that.
And Leanne, if they really love exercises, I always put the change 3 things, that fun exercise, into my seminar before I actually either put it in the middle somewhere or the beginning, depending on if you are where you are in terms of getting them up to re-energize.
What is that, Shireen?
3 physical things about themselves. I think it's in the members area, is it not? So
it's in our resources, and
it's in the resources.
Have you got enough to think about there, Leanne?
I think to make a start, yes. And then maybe next week I'll do the equality and diversity and bring up the change thing again.
So go on then, Annette. How can we help you?
Well, I don't know. I have been asked to put together a day on principles of good customer service. What the outcome is that they want increased confidence and ultimately the private patients not to complain, as far as I can tell. So I was just wondering, where can I find more about improving the customer experience?
So I've chucked a link into chat. So I work with a guy called Alf Dunbar, who wrote You Are the Difference as a book. These are not surprising customer service ideas in any way. Now, not all of them will be appropriate, but but some of it is a bit of a mindset shift, and that's probably where they're at as well. So it might be quite useful. I don't think I've got any of his books left, or I would post one down. I'll go and have a quick look.
Hmm.
So
I-
what I was going to say is I did customer service training years ago, and it was B2B. I'm just going to throw this in, and honestly, Annette, it was the best customer service training I've ever done, and I did do loads of it. And we started off with an exercise called "I was a dissatisfied customer," and we just got them to tell, because everyone's got a tale of when they're a dissatisfied customer, and they love to tell the tale. And then this happened, and then that happened, and then you really have to rein them in. But everyone's got that tale, and that just provided me with a vehicle for the whole day, to talk about, well, what was it that triggered this in the first place, and then why do you still remember it today, and what still makes you angry about it? And it's so the trigger is, usually something system related, or in their case, product related. The product didn't work. My name wasn't on the list when I came to say I was here. So it's a specific thing. But if that's handled well, it actually becomes a bit of a nothing. But it's when that's not handled well, and all of those things, we talk a lot about the circle of control.
Yeah.
So, why did it become an issue? Why did it escalate? Why did you get so annoyed with them? And then you unpack it all, and people are saying, well, it's because they didn't, I just got passed around every time I picked up the phone, nobody knew about it. No one seemed to take responsibility, and that's all within our own control. So, Eleanor.
Another thing I would suggest, Annette, because when you said, oh, they're scared of talking to private patients, I was like, what? Why? So it might be worth digging into that. So why are they scared? What are they scared of specifically? And get them to give you some scenarios. So
Yeah.
I did a day, I don't do a lot of customer service training, but I did a day like a year or so ago, and I had to sort of start from scratch with it. And what really landed well with them was I got some specific scenarios that they would come up with in their working day, like real ones, and played with those quite a bit. So if confidence is the issue, the more you can get them to practice and role play some of those specific kind of scenarios, once you've given them the background and all the sort of elements of customer service and all that good stuff around communication, and just get them to really play with it and just
I think that's what they wanted. They wanted so AM was principles, and then afternoon some real scenarios and what we do.
So you could do
I was
stuff around assertive behaviour, saying no.
Yeah,
that sort of
I
thing,
think that's,
and then get them to practice it.
and that's just reminded me of a program that I designed for one of the hospitals actually during lockdown about not putting up with stroppy people, because I think there was an element. I think there is a sense of what's the word? It's not entitlement, but there is a sense of I'm special with private patients. Yeah, privilege maybe, but more, treat me better because I'm paying, or my insurance company or my company is paying for it rather than NHS. So I think there is that sense of how do I get to grips with somebody who might come back and say, look, I'm paying for this.
Shireen's got a hand up. Shireen, what do you want to say?
Yeah, I was going to say exactly what Eleanor was going to say. Definitely have to put a component there around assertiveness, because the reason why they just don't know how to speak to this person. Also, responses to calm down once a person does get upset. How do you get them to calm down? So that's another one that makes people apprehensive. I don't know what to say to this person. I would really challenge you to. I've done seminars for hospitals in the United States and Canada. Very different, because in the United States everybody pays for it. So, and these are hospitals that have valet parking, just to tell you the level of service you get when you're paying thousands of dollars. So I would challenge you to go and look at what some of the American hospitals are doing in terms of customer service, and then let them know that within hospitals, customer service is very different. If you come out and you have a baby, then you're going to be like, oh, this was fantastic, it was great. If you come out and you're having cancer treatment, that's a different form of customer service. Their view is going to be very, very different. So that's a reality, that the type of service also depends on what it is that the person is in there for.
Yeah, I can chuck in human factors in there as well, Sheridan.
Exactly. And you're a genius on that.
You could do something about, if you're feeling sort of triggered, like Shireen said, how to calm yourself down and think rationally and come up with a rational response rather than responding emotionally. and something maybe around the language that you use. So being
Yeah.
positive. So rather than saying you can't do this or you need to do that, is how you would rephrase those things
Yeah.
to sound more positive and kind of collaborative, I suppose, so that you're
Yeah.
helping to manage the other person's reactions, so they're less likely to complain about you because they feel they're being looked after and supported, even though you're telling them bad news. So
Yeah.
yeah, maybe something about how to deliver bad news in a sort of
Yes.
positive way.
That's the other one I was going to say.
Uh,
Like
yeah.
say your operation's been pulled kind of thing. How do you get that across? And you just have a little play around with that and come up with some
Yeah.
different phrases.
There's,
some
there's
examples.
something that I'm going to go to Leanne in just a minute, but that just reminded me as well about just the language. So instead of saying, "Oh, I'm really sorry, we're running half an hour late," it's just about, well, the good news is you're going to be the next person in.
Mm.
So it's
And
just spinning it completely.
we expect that to be in about half an hour's time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And
So,
you know,
Leanne?
Sherman, that'll be a wonderful idea to transform how they currently say things.
Yeah,
They don't even realize that they're saying things in a negative way. So how do
They
you
don't.
transform that?
Yeah.
don't.
How
That
would you
well-known-
say it? How
there's-
could you say it?
There's that
Yeah.
well-known saying that no woman has ever calmed down when being told to calm down.
Yeah,
So-
building on what Eleanor and Sheridan and Shireen have said, often we write down all the things we normally say, and then we have a play with how do you rewrite it, and then say it out loud to see how it actually lands. Say it one way to the person next to you, and then say it in the new version. And even if it's just in that little space, people already can see and feel and hear the difference, both parties. And when
Yes.
people start writing those little scripts, and then eventually get them to write their own scripts, and then we can always improve on them. And then eventually that just becomes their normal language, because at the moment they're just using language that the intention is good, but they've just become a habit to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, but," do you know what I mean? Which
Yeah.
is like not what to say, is it?
Yeah.
And I would definitely trizz. I'd definitely do
Yeah.
a trizz in your
Yeah.
training. How can we reliably ensure that we annoy a patient who, or whatever so think about what the goal is, and then make it the anti-goal. So if you want to give, make someone feel special and be on time, then you'd say, how can you reliably guarantee that every time we deal with someone, they feel like crap, and we are running, and we run behind schedule all the time. You know what I mean? Be really specific. And then if you trizz that, it brings up a whole lot of stuff. And then, what are you currently doing in any way, shape, or form? And then what do we need to stop doing? Because that's what the trizz is about. It's not about what we can do better or different. The trizz is, what do we need to stop doing, so that it makes way for new things? Because often we go to training and we want to learn new and different. How can we make progress and do things faster?
Mm.
The thing is, we haven't removed the barriers yet. So if you can highlight that in your trizz first,
Yeah.
and then you go into, okay, so we've now stopped doing this. What is the one thing you can do? What is your first action step to stop doing this? And then some other steps, and they can coach each other on that, and then you can get into scripts. I also use parent, adult, child, the whole TA.
Oh, yeah.
Help them
Perfect as
to
well.
be
Yeah.
assertive, because often they might be coming to the patient as a parent.
Yeah,
Or
they
the-
might have also done insights as well, so they might all be oozing a
Yeah.
little much green energy.
Or the patient comes at them as a parent, who do you think
Yeah.
you are, blah, 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 and then they're going to child, and if they understand
Mm.
that it's triggering their child, how can they step up to be adults, go into their adult, and then they can bring the other person, because we can all adult.
Thank you. That's given me some great ideas. Thank you.
And that in addition to the phrases, how to rephrase things, tone of voice is everything when they deliver it. So what I would do is also go through, one of the things I do is I show a series of happy faces, different sort of faces, disappointed, and I have them shout, or actually give me a disappointed O and really, those two words. So give me a happy O, a disappointed O, a disgusted O. And they realize, oh my gosh, I can set a different tone or send a different message with tone of voice. Really, 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 really.
I like that.
Wow. Oh, you see, so you let them practice it, and then they realize, oh my gosh, I don't even have to say anything. I can do a whole sentence just with "oh" and "really." Mhm.
That's
Oh.
really good.
So it's really good for customer service because they realize that, you know, modulating your voice makes a huge difference with the message you send.
Oh, really?
Yeah, exactly. And then I
Really?
tell them, give me I don't want to be here. Oh, really?
Nice one. I like that. I like that anyway, but
Yeah.
for these as well, yeah, I think that's been really helpful.
If you just edit that one section, what that Sharon didn't just, I mean, that Shireen just demonstrated, you could pop it into the training in that. It makes such a difference. Just how she demonstrated the
And
really.
they, I actually make them do it, Leanne. I actually
Yeah, I
show
know,
them.
it's fantastic, but it would have been inspirational, I think. That would be great. You did a great demo there.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely brilliant. All righty then. Well, I feel like we've flown through those topics a little bit.
Yeah, all good.
All right then. Thank you.
Bye,
Thanks
everyone.
everyone.
Good day, good to
Thanks,
see you all.
everyone.
Everyone.
Thanks so much,
Bye.
everyone. Really
Bye.
helpful.
Good luck. Good luck.
Bye.